509 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. Excuse me. It's Ronald Raygun.
Ronald Raygun. Long time no talk to. How are you, sir?
Good. That caller basically summed it up for me. Psych. Remember when people said psych?
Yeah, I do.
Real quick on that call, two things. The things that they said were sort of nefarious, like people, non-Libyans crossing on the Libyan coast, traveling across multiple European countries to get to Britain and paying large sums of money to get there, I would suggest are not nefarious at all. The Libyan coast happens to be one way to get to Europe, and it's fairly close. So that's not unusual. That's just a thing that people do. They can't fly to Britain, so they have to figure out a way to get there by land. A lot of people probably don't speak Italian or German or French, and so they're trying to get to an English-speaking country where they probably have family or friends.
Right.
And then the cost, I mean, usually those costs are a couple different things. Pooled by family or friends to get them there, or it could be somebody who worked hard and has access to that money, but their life is in danger. And
Also,
so they
for
have
example,
to flee.
France is like incredibly hostile to immigrants, specifically Muslim ones, and we're seeing that right now, even
Right.
in comparison to the UK.
Yeah, so I mean, exactly. There's lots of reasons why people would do the things that they outlined there that don't include, like, they must be Al-Qaeda or something like that. And people should just try to get to know some people like that, or spend a little bit of time thinking about it or reading their stories to try and figure out.
I got the sense
why
that
people do that.
what Artie was trying to make a case, and it may be the case, and I'm going to just give him the benefit of the doubt that he's making that case in the UK, because like I say, I think in this country we can both materially and politically sustain, frankly, more immigration in this country. I don't think that I just don't think it's. I think there is a serious contingency in this country of anti-immigrant sentiment, but I don't think it's overwhelming in any way. And
Right.
and the bottom line is, even if this is the argument that he's making, the idea that this is fixed, that it is immutable, that it can be improved by knocking those numbers down in some way, or I don't know how you talk about it differently to convince people who have this anti-immigrant sentiment. I think what you do is you bring in more immigrants, and you get people used to the idea of immigrants being around. And
Yeah.
that's it. I mean, that's
They're
my
undergoing that, growing pain process in, Scandinavian countries, like right now, pretty much.
I wanted to share a conversation I had with a client today. She is trying to bring
people
her
should just
daughter.
keep that in mind if you are looking for Ronald Raygun to be your attorney. Apparently, he just doesn't feel. He feels
Yeah, her alien number is no. So she has applied for her daughter to come to the U.S., and it's been a couple of years now. We're still working on it, and everything got hung up with COVID and the Trump stuff. And we're just waiting for an interview at this point, but it is taking a long time. And she said this thing about how unfair it is, all this stuff that's going on at the border, and those people get to just sort of like show up, and meanwhile, they're trying to do things, the right way, and they're bogged down in bureaucracy. And in a way, it's sort of an echo of what the last caller was saying, which is, these false divisions and distinctions. And I tried to explain, very gently, that the people at the border aren't getting a free pass. They've got incredibly difficult paths ahead also. And the solution is not to improve her pathway by making another pathway more complicated, but to improve the pathways for everybody and to make these processes, quicker and faster. And in fact, one thing that makes the border conversation complicated is it is sort of this multifaceted, multi-layered thing where even like the fact that family-based petitions are taking so long, or it's impossible to get a tourist visa or to come in, on a work visa or whatever, those other pathways are so restricted that it puts increased pressure on on things like requesting asylum at the border. Whereas if those people had other quick ways to come, they would obviously be doing that, and that would save everybody time and money and all those things. And so and then meanwhile, like the immigration court system that is supposed to be adjudicating asylum claims continues to be like a complete kangaroo court, and it's been functionally destroyed over the last 4 years. And they haven't done anything to fix that, by the way, since.
Well, let's address this, because there's a couple of different dynamics that are going on here, right? One is that there has been like material degradation to the system that existed as insufficient as it was before, material degradation to it during the Trump years. And then the question is like, what is the Biden administration doing, A, on a policy level, and then B, on an administrative level, and what could they be doing better? Like, I mean, if you were in charge of the system today and you saw that, okay, we're now warehousing all of these children, right? And like, what would you do? Would you say, okay, we're going to get rid of, and even aside from the fact that like Title 42, I think by all accounts is a violation of both statutes in this country and international law. Would you say, okay, we're going to let in the parents as well? Would you say we just need to throw money at this, or we're going to relax certain restrictions on placing children with their relatives? Like, what would you do at this point if you could address this, broadly speaking, instead of just sitting in your office and calling this show?
I think I'm doing a pretty good job of fixing it right now. No, so I think that you were right the other day when you said that we need resources that aren't obviously like military dropouts, aka ICE, cop, police academy dropouts or whatever. We need like social workers and people who can help locate or relocate and place the children. The family thing, I mean, Obama's solution was to detain families for long periods of time, even families with like people they could be settled with here. And that was sort of this weird, I mean, it was supposed to be a deterrent, basically.
Right.
And that was sort of arbitrarily applied. Like there were lots of people who just weren't detained, and then other people who were. So that's not really the solution. You just need more resources to help get people settled. There were programs in place under the Obama administration to help people make sure they know when they have a court, and Trump did away with that. And so immigrants are coming in with, it's actually really crazy. Like they get a notice to appear in court that doesn't have a date or a time for a hearing. Basically, they're saying we're going to mail you a hearing date in the future. And I'm just one practitioner, but I have like dozens of clients who came in the last several years who their notice to appear was never even filed in the immigration court. So they're just here, and they still haven't had a hearing date because either ICE didn't file it or the immigration court misplaced it. And so there's just a lot of, there's too many things to list. But in terms of the court, the first thing they should do is honestly, like, administratively close all the cases. There's over 1 million cases in immigration court. And then just say that the parties can recalendar the cases they think are important by motion. And then that would allow the judges to focus on, recent arrivals and to make sure that those cases are adjudicated quickly and fairly. But there's lots of other changes.
So first step would be just to say, like, all these cases, forget about it. Like if you're in the country, you're in the country. Like you're in the country, you're in the country, unless like customs has like a specific issue, right? Is that basically it? Like all of these, like
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, so like Obama did a pretty good job. I remember going to a hearing at the end of the Obama administration where an ICE trial attorney, a prosecuting attorney, stood up and said, "Who wants their case closed? Like, come up here and let me know, and we'll just get you off the docket." And the idea was like this will allow us to focus on recent arrivals and people with serious criminal history, which is a paradigm I reject personally, but that's okay. So if you've got 5 domestic violence arrests, sorry, we're not closing your case. We're going to move forward with it. And Trump did away with that and put a bunch of new people in removal proceedings, including I've got a couple of clients who their abusive partners called the police on them, and now they're in removal proceedings because of that encounter with police. And so the system is just weighed down by having too many people in it. I mean, really what you need is an amnesty, obviously, but short of that, you could say, we're parking all these cases, and we're clearing all the dockets. If the government has somebody that they feel is a threat to the community or somebody that they really are worried about having deported, they can file a motion to recalendar that case. And conversely, like there's a lot of immigrants whose only pathway to legalization is through removal proceedings, which is another fucked up part of the system. But if an immigrant has an application for relief that they want to pursue, they can file a motion to recalendar. But right now, I mean, it's the whole thing is just in shambles. So
ridiculous. It's so ridiculous.
It's really horrible. And actually, like, I got to get my shots in at Biden and the Biden administration. Day one, he signs this thing saying basically like, we're going back to the Obama priorities, which is great. But to this day, the ICE prosecutors haven't received any guidance. And so they're not willing to stipulate to anything, even when you have like all the facts laid out and you've met your burden, because it's the immigrant's burden to prove eligibility for relief. They're still unwilling to say like, yeah, you've met your burden. So we have to go to trial and put on like 3 hours of testimony. And then they'll admit at the end, like they're not opposed to relief. But after all this time, I've tried to be really patient with them, but this is not like rocket science. It's going back to, Biden's old boss's policy. And, hopefully we get there eventually, but it's just another thing where
when I hear
changed.
that story of Bill Clinton seeing what's going on in California in 1994, and that he was worried about losing California in 1996 and therefore made his policies more restrictive, that's what makes me think about what's going on with Biden. That there are people in his administration who are just like, look, we can just sort of, we're not getting grief about this, and so let's do nothing.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
I mean, yeah, they're scared of their own shadow in some ways, for sure. I think a lot of this stuff is so granular that it could be changed without, obviously
anybody knowing about it.
It's going to get picked up by Fox probably, right. And they're gonna say it's something bigger than it really is. So I guess that's, but you know what? Like they say Biden is for open borders. Right.
So that's the thing. That's the thing. That's the thing that I think they don't understand. Like in these that the Democrats don't understand. I really don't think they understand this. And I'm just looking at this from purely a political standpoint, right? Because they clearly don't have the humanitarian impulse to sort of like take what they even perceive to be a minor risk. But there is no risk associated with this. It seems to me like the claims are so audacious already that the idea that Fox is going to go on there like Joe Biden is for open borders and also incidentally has paved the way administratively for judges to excuse certain cases under it just doesn't. It's just I don't know. It's ridiculous. But Ronald Raygun, I appreciate your calling in and telling us about it.
I had a jokey call where I was going to call in as Dennis Miller with suggested burns of Dave Rubin. I've got some good Dennis Miller, not Dave Rubin. What's his name? Glenn Greenwald. I've got some good Dennis Miller, Glenn Greenwald.
I think you already made the
in the bag.
Interesting confusion there.
Yeah.
Well, All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, next time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Please
Appreciate
save
it.
that.